What's the word? Everybody on YouTube and also on Instagram. Instagram only for a few minutes. If you're on Instagram, hit the link and go to the YouTube channel and like, share, subscribe. If y'all get a couple more subscribers, the YouTube videos will be live and they won't be pre-recorded. Just need a couple more for that. But right now we're going to get into episode 4 of the Netflix documentary Mr. McMahon. This one is called Attitude. It's going to start in the Attitude Era. It's a lot of people my age's favorite era of the WWE. We're going to see how it starts right now. Actually starts with looks like
Dr. Jerry Graham was not the
a
favorite
match
person in
between
this
Dr.
arena.
Jerry Graham and Angelo Savoni.
Favorites as kids. Favorite was a foreign by the name of Dr. Jerry Graham. He was a doctor, obviously. A big guy, bleach blonde hair, and he would light a cigar with a hard look.
I've never known a guy that makes as many enemies as Dr. Jerry Graham.
If they healed into perhaps of her business.
Now, at that time, to be lighting a cigar with $100 bill in the 50s, you was a baller. He didn't really die a rich man, I guess. I guess he burned up all his money. Literally. But this is some of the guys. They asked Vince who did he look up to as a child, and Dr. Jerry Graham was one of the people that he mentioned.
Reason why I liked him, I don't know. Because I never liked the good guys. Wanted me to like him so badly, I convinced my stepmother to dye my hair blonde. And I learned to strut just like he did. Yeah, he doesn't walk. He struts. So he sort of took me under his wing. You want to take a ride, kid? Or did I ever?
Dr. Jerry Graham also ran the Florida Championship Wrestling. It was a pretty big and successful territory for a long time. Brought you guys like Dusty Rhodes, Mike Jerry Graham. Bad News Allen was the champion there. Lex Luger was a champion there. Pretty successful promotion for a long time.
1959 convertible, riding shotgun. He's honking the horn going through intersections, regardless if the light was green or red. And it's like, this is grand. Man, I want to live my life like this. He was just so flamboyant, so aggressive, and the hubris, and, the color, and all of that. I was like, yeah, that's who I want to be.
Started off episode 4. Okay, this says in January 2024, Vince McMahon had resigned due to all the allegations that are well documented. It's starting off with the Montreal school job right now. As you can see, Brett was tearing up some shit at the end of the Montreal school job. They got Brett destroying monitors after he spit all over Vince. That Brett, as you could imagine, was very angry. If you want to know a little bit more about the Montreal school job, check out my previous video with me reviewing episode 3.
Unquestionably the most controversial bout in the history of wrestling.
The Montreal screw job, it just was so crazy surreal. That caused such inner turmoil within the business. the underground world, what is now the internet world, got a hold of the behind the scenes information, and that was spreading like wildfire. You're seeing the reaction by people to something they should have known nothing about. The fans knew that Vince double-crossed Bret Hart, which was something very, very unprofessional by the rules of professional wrestling. There's two sides to every story, but most people did not side with Vince on that one.
Listen, the Montreal Screwjob to me as a Canadian, like, I fucking hated Vince.
Vince goes on television and tries to explain it. He didn't come off very well.
Bret screwed Bret. I have no sympathy whatsoever for Bret.
The Bret screwed Bret.
Right now, you can see Vince on TV talking to Jim Ross saying Bret screwed Bret with a pretty good shiner. Paul Levesque is explaining his side of the story about it right now. Oh yeah, Mr. Levesque.
See to fantasy, and we begin to blur the line.
Mr McMahon to a rousing big foot. Mr McMahon out of the building.
As a result of all this, I have all this heat, as we call it.
See, he didn't expect to have all that. He wanted to pretty much come off as the good guy in the situation. But since he got all the heat, as you listen on further, he took advantage of it.
So I thought, okay, Vince, why not turn that into business? Use now you as a character.
He's not endeared himself to this crowd.
I always wanted to be a performer, but my dad wouldn't let me into business, much less that. He just thought, no, that's not what you want to do. And I was like, yeah, that's what I really want to do. When it happened, it felt pretty natural.
Just show a little respect.
It's pretty funny. He was asking him to show a little respect. He's pretending to be somber, but as you can imagine, this didn't quite go the way Vince thought it was gonna go. All right, here I'm back, y'all. You have to excuse me. I just learning how to do the setup, so this probably ain't gonna be the permanent setup. I've got a green screen here, and I'm gonna learn how to use it soon. So, you have to excuse the light going out every once in a while, please. But don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Hit that link that's right there. And then go to YouTube, because I'm only going to stay on Instagram for a minute. So I'm going to continue to play the documentary right here. But right now, see, Vince, like I said before, thought, what up, Nove? Vince thought he was going to be a baby face after this incident, but that's not the reaction he got. After the Montreal Screwjob, they actually booed him. He wasn't quite expecting that. He wanted to come off as a sympathetic figure, but since he didn't, it all changed around, and probably for the better for Vince. Let's check it out. Go ahead, Vince.
Vince McMahon creates the Mr. McMahon character, the evil tyrant boss.
Can you hear this on Instagram?
Eventually, that would change the trajectory of the business.
Let's talk about the business and the challenge that you have received from WCW. If I look at cable listings for January in 1 week, WCW is number 1, number 2, number 4, and number 6. You're down in number 18.
Through 97, WCW, they were just so far ahead, and their product was better. So I'm just thinking, it's like, this is just a domination. And it's going to be like this for the foreseeable future.
That's David Meltzer talking.
I think once Bret Hart made the transition and came over to WCW, I think if you were to click put the rosters side by side on a piece of paper,
Fair use.
WCW was in a much better position than WWE was.
Do it
I wanted
commentary.
to dominate and win. And if WWE went out of business in the process, that would have been unfortunate, but I wouldn't have felt bad about it.
What is this? What a piece of work this guy is. What is it?
For years, we were kind of stuck.
See, right there, they're showing other gimmicks such as the gobbledygooker, and I forget what the baseball player's name was. The guy dressed up with baseball paint all over his face and a ball and glove going to the ring like this. They were doing a lot of silly shit because they were losing in the ratings. Of course, WCW was white hot in 1997. Let's continue.
They were hitting that 18 to 34-year-old demographic with some really cutting edge stuff. 83 weeks of getting our tails kicked in the ratings, it messes with your confidence, it messes with your psyche.
Mark Calloway.
But it also lets you know that you got to do something different. I knew if we didn't change, we'd just get left behind.
You're dealing with networks and you're dealing with people in the networks that are looking at you going, hey, these guys are beating you in the ratings and I see our talent on their show. What's going on here, guys?
You listen to the audience and you sort of feel it. It's time for a change. It was time for us to take another step and evolve.
When I started working with Vince, it was absolute war between the two franchises.
It'll be me and you, McMahon, in the ring.
That was Bonnie Hammer. Used to be a VP that worked for the WWE. I forgot exactly what she did. I think she has something to do with talent relations. Don't give me the line. I'm not sure. I remember she was a WWF or WWE executive, though. I vaguely remember.
To be known for pushing the envelope, for being bold, being a little crazy.
Vince came out and did an interview about this new way of producing WWE programming.
We in the WWF think that you, the audience, are quite frankly tired of having your intelligence insulted.
Vince kind of teased all this newness that was coming down the road. And I thought, yeah, whatever. You're going to come out with another version of Doink the Clown and some evil dentist, and you're going to keep doing what you're doing. I didn't know that Vince was making the decision to create the Attitude Era.
Was there a distinctive moment when the Attitude Era was born?
Yeah, there was.
One night, Vince was not at a television taping, and Shawn Michaels came down in bicycle shorts. And right before he went out, he stuffed the front of his shorts with a sock.
It was gauze, wasn't a sock. It was gauze that wound up on the trainer table. And I was just, bouncing around.
That's very funny. This dude walking out in his drawers with a bulge in his pants. Really, just to get a reaction is hilarious to me. Oh man, a lot of people always wondered about his sexuality, but I just think it was just funny. Me myself. Let's see.
Stuff like that. Vince's reaction was to call me the next day and tell me how unprofessional it was and that he was fining me $10,000. And I said, okay, but you go back and watch that and tell me if that isn't funny. If we're talking about entertainment, it was very entertaining. That was one of the things that got us into the conversations of, we need to start going there. I felt like you can have respect for this line of work, but you don't have to act like it's freaking not weird. Suffice to say, I weaseled my way out of the $10,000 fine.
Vince was livid, but then 3 or 4 weeks later, Remember Vince pointed to Shawn Michaels. That's attitude. That's what he says. He's got attitude. We need more attitude.
One funny thing about Bruce Pritchard is that he does great impressions. He does great impressions of Vince. He does a very good Dusty Rhodes. He does a pretty good Ric Flair. I think he does a better Dusty Rhodes than anything else. A lot of people don't really care for Bruce, but I like him. You know, if you watch the podcast, you can hear Mike Loves talk about how much he can't stand Bruce Pritchard, but I like him. Bruce Pritchard also played Brother Love back in the day, for the older fans that can remember Brother Love for Instagram. Go ahead.
The Attitude Era was just this transformation that took place. We changed how we presented our product. We got a little grittier, we got a little dirtier, we made it a little more raw.
People just go, oh, the Attitude Era, here's where it started, here's what it is. It was slowly bits and pieces over time.
I need to learn how to pin this link.
Generation X is what we would call in sports entertainment faction. They were an offshoot of the clique. They were anti-authority. And there's something about anti-authority at this time that really spoke to fans. And whether it was part of the fiction or completely real, you didn't know. But you couldn't turn away.
When Sean and I started doing DX, man, most of the things we were saying and doing, Vince was coming back and telling us, God damn, you guys do that again and you're going to get fucked. Like, USA's threatening to take us off the air. But we're like coming.
Now, these dudes right now are doing the suck it signs. They're basically showing Sean's ass on TV. They're being very vulgar, and Vince wasn't really with this shit at first. But after a while, the shit started working. He started to change his mind because they've been losing in a ratings war for more than a year and a half. Or wait a minute, 83. Yeah, more than a year and a half. So he had to do something. And that's where the Attitude Era came in. Just pretty much I'm back now out of desperation. Excuse me because the light keep fucking up, but I guess that's just the type of night it's going to be.
We just finally changed the writing to where it wasn't for a 12-year-old demographic. It got into that 18 to 34-year-old male demographic. Once that show was opened, I marched right through it because it was working. It's all about filling up those arenas and stadiums, and it was just like we do whatever we got to do to be the best.
The biggest star of the Attitude Era by far was Stone Cold Steve Austin.
No doubt. By far the biggest star and pretty much the king of the Attitude Era. And what I think really made the Attitude Era besides DX, what really made it really work was Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Kick your ass in the ring with Steve Austin. Bottom line is, I'm going to kick your ass. Straight simple.
He was something that we weren't used to seeing. This kind of foul-mouthed, roughneck, blue-collar Southern badass.
When I first got into the business of professional wrestling, I never had any designs on being as successful as I would be because I didn't know how far some ragamuffin from Victoria, Texas could take it.
Prior to WWE, Steve Austin was a wrestler in WCW, but he got fired from WCW, so he winds up in ECW, which is sort of the punk rock indie federation in the pro wrestling world.
And walking into that federation, man, it was an eye opener and a hell of a scene. This is extreme. This is the ECW arena.
I enjoyed ECW too. I think ECW also got kind of big around the Attitude Era time because they were the ultimate in the Attitude Era. They didn't quite, the WWE would never quite go as far as ECW would. So I think ECW kind of, once the WWE or WWF started to get a little more graphic, it made it a little bit more acceptable for ECW to do so. And I think this is around the time the ECW really flourished. Nove, I'm gonna have you do one of these wrestling shows with me and Mike too soon, bro. We'll talk about it. Go ahead, Paul.
Necessary disruption of the pro wrestling / sports entertainment industry. No rules, no regulations, a testosterone and adrenaline driven, no holds barred. This can't possibly be legal. What the fuck am I watching atmosphere? It was a mosh pit. ECW was a wild ass renegade type promotion that attracted that niche audience. And it was very unusual. I greatly appreciated the promotion and the promoter behind it.
They the mofo organization in the world. Okay, Paul. They were showing shit like everybody throwing chairs into the ring, them having a moss pitch and tearing the ring down. It was a lot of wild shit going on in ECW back around this time. But I enjoyed ECW. I enjoyed Raven. I enjoyed the Pit Bulls. That's where I first saw Eddie Guerrero. I believe it's probably where I first saw Rey Mysterio too. I had already seen Chris Benoit before ECW, maybe a few years before that. But it was a lot of my first time seeing guys like Chris Canyon, a lot of guys, Taz. Of course, I had seen Raven before as Scotty Flamingo, and you know he was Scotty Polo or whatever he was in the WWF before then, and he went to ECW and actually became a star. Scott Anthony, whatever he was back then.
Vince always saw everyone else as a feeder system to the major leagues of WWE. So I knew we didn't have Steve for a long time, but we were going to make it quality time for every moment that he was in ECW. We achieved a lot of success in a short time.
See, Steve was great in WCW too. Former tag team champion, former television champion, and a former U.S. champion. I've been a fan of Steve Austin before he was Stone Cold. I was a fan of Steve Austin, matter of fact, when he wrestled down in Texas, where he wrestled for the Von Erichs down in Texas, where he was trained with gentleman Chris Adams. Gentleman Chris Adams was a wrestler who wrestled 80s, early 90s, was a European wrestler from Britain, I believe. You can check Chris Adams out probably on the WWE Network on the World Class Championship Wrestling section. But check him out. What up, Nick? My man Nick. Nick, you gonna have to get with me, Nova, and Mike on the wrestling tip too. Plan on using YouTube, bro. Oh no, Nick is a huge wrestling fan too.
Vince took serious notice of me, and that's when I would go to WWE.
Stone Cold Steve Austin. I love it, McMahon.
So I turned into Stone Cold Steve Austin, and I became this just trash talking SOB from South Texas, and it became very entertaining, and people started disliking me. We started gaining traction. Now, at that time, everybody knows that Triple H was supposed to win that King of the Ring pay-per-view. But then Triple H got punished because of what happened in the Garden. And I hear his voice behind me in his bench. He goes, "Hey, Steve, you got a second?" I'm like, "Man, I guess so. You're the boss." He says, "Hey, I just want to let you know in 2 weeks you're going to win King of the Ring."
I said that in the last video. I said he had got in trouble. When Triple H got in trouble for the curtain call, that it wasn't necessarily a bad thing to punish him at that moment because he was supposed to win the King of the Ring that year, and I was right. Steve Austin won it that year, and that really put Steve in the overdrive.
So we get to the King of the Ring pay-per-view. I'm wrestling Mark Merrow first. We do a move. He kicks me in the mouth, and busts my lip wide open. I've got to go to the hospital immediately and get 14 stitches. As soon as I come back from the ambulance, Michael Hayes comes up to me and goes, "Hey, man, you got Jake the Snake Roberts in the final, and Jake just got a religious promo on you. Power above is reaching down and lifting me up." And immediately, I thought of Austin 316, because back in the day, you watch football games, they would put John 316 signs in the end zone. Go out there, work the match with Jake. I go up to the microphone. Man, I just went out there and started running Jake down. You sit there and you thump your Bible and you say your prayers, and it didn't get you anywhere. Talk about your Psalms, talk about John 3:16. Austin 3:16 says I just whipped your ass. One Steve.
That's when all that started. Nick, I'm gonna try to let you in, Nick. Let me see. Nick, are you still there? I'm gonna try to let you in. First, I gotta bring the lights back on. Nick, you here?
Yeah, I'm good.
My man recorded a YouTube video going live on Instagram.
Didn't I tell you not to accept that request?
Huh?
I just told you that. I knew you was going to do it once I said that.
Yeah, I didn't see it. I don't mind accepting requests. Yeah, it's all good. But I'm gonna use you and my boy Nove. Nove is in here too. On one of my wrestling shows.
You know you can always talk me up.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And I know you're a huge wrestling fan. So whenever I do wrestling videos, I'm gonna hit y'all both up. And Mike Love, the dude I do the podcast with, is a huge wrestling fan too.
I ain't doing nothing but hanging with my friend.
Hey,
sister and her sister-in-law.
Hey, friend and sister-in-law.
I got out the car.
Oh, okay. Right, Nick, I'm gonna get back to the video. We on the Attitude Era now. Stone Cold Steve Austin just did I just whipped your ass quote.
If you want to drink some liquor and beers like Stone Cold, just let me know. I'll pull up on you.
Oh, wow. Not tonight, man. I actually got my kid upstairs, but you need to get with me soon.
Just let me know. You know, ain't shit changed with me.
For sure. All right, then, fam.
My child support payments.
Wow. No, I'm about to let you in, too. Hold on.
I'm going to get off here and just be listening and comment.
All right. do that. I don't know how. It won't probably be that for the whole video because I think Instagram only let me go out. What up, Mo?
What up, man?
Oh man, just trying to do this video right quick. I'm glad you decided to come on, man.
Yeah.
What you up to? I'm on when Stone Cold really started to get big the night he won the King of the Ring.
Yeah, I was listening. That's definitely like the initial kickoff to the Attitude Era right there. I know he was saying like when Sean was, doing the stuff he was doing, but that's to me when Stone Cold did that, that's when people just started like really feeling like, whoa, it's getting out of control, and that's part of the Attitude. Yeah.
Do you think that actually? I said it actually helped ECW too. Because the wild stuff is being a little bit more accepted because the WWF was doing it. Now, they were never quite as wild as ECW.
Yeah.
But I think I think once the WWF got a little more extreme, so to speak, that it made it cool to watch everybody to watch ECW, besides the core group that always watched it.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you. I didn't know about ECW until WWE like put a spotlight on it. Like that's how like a little behind I was in that time with the Attitude Era and stuff like that. I was into the Monday Night Wars, but like I didn't even know there was alternative like ECW or anything like that. Like I was late in that party, like for real.
Well, by the end they had Vince had put just about everybody else out of business. Instead of 20 territories, it was WCW, ECW, the WWE, and maybe Smoky Mountain, and maybe the end of the USWA. That's all it was as far as nationwide promotions. Uh oh. Did is that it? Okay. The live video is over. Okay. Well, I think that's it for Instagram. I must have went too long. If you continue this video, okay. Well, we lost Instagram. Now it's my man Lowell Smith. He'll be doing more videos with me. But let's continue here.
May not play too well, and the Bible Belt. Then I kept talking, and I could hear Vince in the background because he was doing the commentary, and I said, "Oh man, I need a button on this promo." And so, just out of the blue, I said, "And that's the bottom line." Stone Cold said so. It was brilliant. It changed who he was and perception of who he was as a character.
The next night, everywhere you looked were Austin 316 signs. Austin 316 took over, and it was insane.
When the Monday Night War started and we kept losing in the ratings for a while, we understood it because they had a really hot show. It was really fresh and they had a lot of great talent down there and some cool storylines. But as we started to ramp up, we really thought we had a better show. We're like, man, what is up with these ratings? Someone's got to be paying somebody off. We got a better show than they do.
At that point in time, I remember this like, we need to do something here. We need a way to get a lot of eyeballs on us and do something in a really big way for WrestleMania. And that's what we did.
At this time, I would like to introduce to you a man who is simply the best man on the planet. Ladies and gentlemen,
Okay, now they said they wanted to do something huge for WrestleMania, and this was very, very, very big. This was one of the better WrestleManias of the Attitude if you ask me, because I think this is when everything really started to turn around for the WWE. Go ahead, Eric.
I was so far out ahead of him at that point. I was like, yeah, whatever. I was arrogant. Because they're bringing in Mike Tyson. I got uncocky real fast.
The idea for bringing in Mike Tyson came from Vince, and Shane McMahon was heavily involved.
One of the big personality, someone extremely identifiable to be a part of WrestleMania, and there was at that time no one bigger than Tyson. I believe he had gotten out of jail about 3 years earlier.
Knowing Mike Tyson's baggage during the 90s, was it risky for WWE to
Y'all know that I forgot I was recording when I just picked that popcorn from out between my teeth. Oh, that was disgusting. All right, y'all. Yeah, I'm a pig. What can I say?
Right? He had.
Mike is not perhaps universally approved of now, but his public image is certainly in a better place than it was at that point.
Wrestling at that level is about generating heat. Heat is what sells tickets. And heat doesn't have to be positive. Heat can be negative.
Specifically, I would like to thank Mike Tyson, being the media magnet that he is.
Tyson being on.
Before Bruce Pritchard was talking, that was Sharon Mazur. I said her last name was Metzer in other videos, but that's Sharon Mazur, a professional wrestling author. She's wrote a couple of books. And Mike Tyson didn't have the greatest image, I guess, overall back then. I loved him still. He had just a year earlier bitten off part of Evander Holyfield's ear, and this isn't too long after he served 3 years in jail.
Mike would be the special guest referee between Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Shawn Michaels.
It's Mike Tyson, like one of the biggest names in sports. And by then, you have to be blind not to see Steve Austin was taken off.
Mike, I'll tell you this. If you get in my face at WrestleMania, I'll knock your damn lights out, and you won't want to get back in the ring ever again, and that's the bottom line.
At that point, I thought that WCW, while still ahead,
You see, Mike had to cover his ears. Like, I can't hear this because I'm going to really get up and whoop this dude's ass. Go ahead.
It's about earning the opportunity to wrestle in the main event at a WrestleMania. Yeah.
WrestleMania 14, Shawn had a real bad back, and so that match was very forgettable.
It's not for another kick. Austin, take it.
The match wasn't good. It wasn't anything to brag about. Remember afterwards, I looked over at Vince, and he goes, Steve, don't worry about it. From here forward, it starts.
I don't think the match was that bad. They didn't think it was good, but I thought it was okay. I thought it did what it needed to do. Because it really, I think after this, propelled them to start to beat WCW. I think Nove, who was just on, once told me, I think he enjoyed the Attitude Era a lot more than any other era. Don't quote me on that. It might not have been him. But plenty of people have told me that they enjoyed the Attitude Era a little bit more than any other era.
I would like to congratulate the new World Wrestling Federation champion, who has an attitude, no doubt about that. Not one necessarily that all of us here in the WWF necessarily appreciate.
The Mr. McMahon character, at least in my mind, became a real thing after the Mike Tyson storyline played itself out.
Hey Vince, are you turning into a bad guy?
I've always been a good guy.
But they're booing you. They're booing you.
Always be a good guy.
Oh, okay.
The owner of the WWF, Vince McMahon, makes his way to the ring, but honestly, not the most rousing ovation.
At that point in time, a feud with Stone Cold Steve.
I know it's back then. The wrestling press conferences were, even for WrestleMania, weren't like they are now. They don't be in huge press rooms with a whole lot of. I guess there's a lot more wrestling media now than there's ever been. Besides Metzer and a few other people, this was a small room, and you look at these huge rooms they have the press conference with all the with like a bunch of different media in there. Boy, times have changed, haven't they, since back then? Go ahead, Lo.
And would start a battle between those two that would change the course of the business. Nobody, especially Vince McMahon, tells Stone Cold Steve Austin what to do, and that's the bottom line. But all of that based on blurring the lines of reality and fiction. You got to understand the power that a Vince McMahon has, the control.
You've got the eccentric billionaire boss, Vince McMahon, and then you've got the anti-system Stone Cold Steve Austin, and they were perfect for each other.
I will fire your ass.
Good God.
It was about a guy who was trying to keep me down and control me, and it's about me trying to buck the system. You stupid bastards, you ain't got the balls to fire Stone Cold Steve Austin. Any other era,
The funny thing about this part was Vince is sitting there in a wheelchair with two, I guess, cops from the K9 unit holding dogs back from Stone Cold, and Stone Cold still talking mad shit to him. You stupid bastard, you don't have the balls to fight Stone Cold Steve Austin. Stone Cold Steve Austin, I think, is probably the biggest professional wrestler ever. You could argue Hulk Hogan, but this was after Hogan. You could argue The Rock. Well, The Rock probably an overall appeal because now he's like an A-list movie star. But as far as just in wrestling, I don't think it's ever been anybody in the wrestling terms bigger than Stone Cold.
Because of what I'm doing, the trash I'm talking, you're completely pathetic. But I was the guy that brought the gray area to the business of professional wrestling, which is usually a black and white type thing as far as love and hate. See, my day, you were the good guy and the bad guy.
It's Tony Atlas.
Junior made it the bad and the worst. There were no more good guys in wrestling.
Society at that time had taken a rougher edge. Society at that time had more attitude. That forced you to create characters that fit into that gray area in the middle.
The fans did not want to see good guys no more. Nobody want to see a good guy, even in the movies. Look at the video games and the wrestling business. We cater to what is in front.
But yeah, now we're showing Vince tied up and gagged, and they're showing Tony Atlas was just talking about how they wanted to see bad guys in the movies now, and he was showing a clip of Grand Theft Auto 3, which probably had just came out a Grand Theft Auto 3 wasn't out quite yet. Why did they show that? I don't get it. This was a couple years at least before Grand Theft Auto 3 came out. Like 2 years before Grand Theft Auto 3 came out. I don't know. But Grand Theft Auto 3 is a great video game. I actually have it for my Xbox One upstairs. The enhanced version or whatever that just came out a couple years ago. But come on, now they got Sable on here. Let's continue on.
That's big money. So Vince said, hey, give me some of that money.
We don't always set trends, we try to follow them. And back in those days, it was Wild West.
Stone Cold Steve Austin, who is as crude as he is mean. And he's just about the biggest thing in wrestling, worshipped by his fans.
So it feels like smashing a beer bottle, he does it. Feels like throwing up his middle finger, he does it.
Some part of us really loves watching the bad guys get over. Maybe the part of us that doesn't like the fact that we have to behave ourselves. You can't go around shoving people. You can't go around insulting people.
People live vicariously through those kind of storylines and would love to punch your boss in the mouth. I got a chance to literally and figuratively do that most every Monday night on Raw. I think the fans responded strongly because he's such a strong character. He's just so over the top. He's larger than life. He's easy to hate.
See, that's what I mean by how the Montreal school job actually probably produced one of the biggest heels ever in wrestling, Mr. McMahon, who this documentary is named after. That's what I mean. So he thought he was going to be a sympathetic figure, but it just made people hate him. So he just went with it. Go ahead, Steve.
Hey, Mr. McMahon, he's at the top. So any and everybody that's not at the top hates the guy at the top.
He's got an entire collection of Corvettes.
Vince walks by with his custom suits and his flaunting and everything. What's it like? He's easy to hate.
Get that mic out of my face, it's my mic. I own that mic. I own that camera. Cut it off.
And he became the most hated character in the history of the business.
Of course, is a character derived from Vince McMahon, and it's a character of someone I could relate to when I was growing up. Because when I was growing up, I was like dirt poor. Coming from that environment, I don't like rich people because I was around some people who thought they were better than me because they had, quote, more money. So it felt like you weren't anybody at all. You were a nobody. And you learn certain things. In those days, I could fight and love to fight. If you could do that well, now you're somebody. I was good at fighting, but they would say, you didn't fight fair. You cheated. Yeah, I won.
What the hell's the matter with you?
And so, with my character, Mr. McMahon, I can play someone who intimidates because that was the way I grew up. That was the way I thought rich people were. They were trying to intimidate you.
You're gonna get it.
I know how to be an arrogant person that just like throws his weight around and a bully and that sort of stuff.
It's not my fault. Be a self-made billionaire.
It's really wild how he basically became what he hated as far as the character. And, maybe in real life, because he's been very rich for a long time now. He said he grew up dirt poor, which is amazing to me. But it shows if you just keep doing what you love and doing what you're supposed to do, maybe you can end up rich. A lot of us do things every day that we're not supposed to be doing. And we're only living as good as our bosses allow us to live. But he kind of, you know, grabbed the bull by the horns and bought the company from his dad, and he became the boss. Now, this Mr. McMahon character, I think, is one of the greatest heels of all time, and I thought it was brilliantly put together because it wasn't supposed to happen. It wasn't supposed to happen because he thought he was going to get sympathy, but that didn't happen.
It was easy for me to get into that character because I knew all the things that I disliked. Some people are rich and you're not.
He knows how to manipulate a crowd as well or better than anybody that's ever done it.
Hey, the real tension. Love the heat, as they call it. You go out and you manipulate the audience, and they boo the hell out of you, but you really want to get that heat and feel it. We're not afraid of it. It's like go embrace it.
This is what I think of Texans.
You just stepped on a 10-gallon hat.
Vince was a master at making people care or making people hate him or feel emotion. Emotions are when you sell tickets.
It's emotion. If you mash that button so you get emotion from people, they forget where they are. They're in a movie theater, in a arena. They're right there looking at you. It's one-on-one. That's when you know you have them. Performing is easy. Being yourself is the more difficult part.
And what similarities do you share with Mr. McMahon?
Character Mr. McMahon with me?
Yeah.
None whatsoever.
Mr. McMahon is an extension of Vince McMahon, but blown way out of proportion.
The difference between Mr. McMahon and Vince McMahon? Probably not that much.
Exactly the same person. It's not a far stretch.
The character of Mr. McMahon is really just Vince. He'll tell you different. No, Mr. McMahon is Vince. A lot of the promos and the diatribes that have been cut on other people, I've had actually cut on me in real life. I'd never say that. I said, yeah, you would. You said it to me.
Bruce claimed that he's been on the receiving end of the Mr. McMahon in real life.
I'm very, very passionate about our business. And sometimes that passion is a bit...
Yeah, I guess imitates life. I can believe because he played the character so well that he probably is or was about like that. And Bruce Pritchard had been around him so long that I can imagine him being just like that, especially to Bruce. Bruce has been around him the last 35 years on and off. Or maybe even more.
Balance a little bit.
The Mr. McMahon character is pretty close to Vince the Man, but obviously highly exaggerated. The best characters in wrestling are guys at their core with the volume turned up. What you saw from me as Stone Cold was me with the volume turned up. Same with Vince.
Much of great fiction is that funny line between reality and storytelling. Vince loved blurring that line between fact and fiction.
A lot of people have confused through the years, who my character was on television and who I am. He used to bug the hell out of me. I'm not that guy. Then I realized it doesn't matter what you want, Vince. It doesn't matter how you want to be perceived. It's the way you are being perceived. Your perception is reality. You can't change the way people think about you.
The double work. Driving, Mr. McMahon.
Austin McMahon, that dynamic was just ridiculously good. You could make a great argument it's the greatest feud in wrestling history.
The rise of Stone Cold Steve Austin and Stone Cold versus Mr. McMahon is what generated the huge amount of ratings for WWE that essentially ended the 83 weeks of WCW beating them in the ratings, and ultimately, like a tsunami, overtook the wrestling business.
That's Brian Gross. Was a writer for the WWE for years after Stephanie McMahon started hiring writers, more so than wrestling people. But I think he actually has a pretty good wrestling mind.
Period. It was the hottest thing in the world.
I say this, and I know it's going to sound like I'm putting myself over and I'm being an arrogant prick, but Vince took our formula, decided he was going to do it, only he was going to do it better. And he did. There were so many things that we did in WCW that WWE eventually replicated. DX was nothing more than a derivative of the NWL. The Mr. McMahon character was a derivative of...
Well, yeah, because they all were the clique. When you look at the clique, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Shawn Michaels, and Paul Levesque, NWO, DX. So I guess they will be very similar, but all them people originated from the WWF. Most of the people that were in the NWO, especially the big players, were from the WWF. It's just Eric used them differently, and Vince, I guess did borrow that formula and do it better. Now that I really think about what Eric said, but all them people came. All your main stars in there came from Vince. So it was already talented Vince molded that you just used differently. But Vince already molded that talent.
Come on, Vince, you gotta admit, you ripped me off on that one. Now, granted, you did it better. But come on, who did it first?
If Eric Bischoff thinks that he played the heel character before I did, okay, if that were the case, he sure as hell didn't play it as well. So, good for him.
WWE was going to win inevitably. Vince McMahon, being the competitor he is, the fighter that he is, would have done whatever he had to do to ultimately win that fight. And I was coming up short. I was not focused on creative. The NWO angle was a couple years old now. It wasn't fresh anymore. Things that were going on in WWE with Mr. McMahon and Steve Austin and others was new, was fresh, which caused the audience to shift over and check out what they were doing.
Eric's big mistake was thinking, because I'm ahead, all I got to do is go with these guys and I'll always be ahead. And wrestling, everyone's got a shelf life, and you always have to make new stars. And Vince was trying to make new stars because he had to. And Vince got very lucky. Austin was an incredible success. And then Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson comes.
You smell what The Rock...
Ladies and gentlemen, great to welcome to the show one of the fastest rises to the top in the history of wrestling, The Rock. Let's start off with a bit of your history. When you broke in, you were packaged as a part of a wrestling legacy.
My grandfather was High Chief
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. What can you say about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson? Very entertaining. Had the looks, former college football player, third generation wrestler, like he said here, the grandson of High Chief Peter Maivia and the son of the Soul Man Rocky Johnson. And it's probably worldwide, him and Hulk Hogan are probably the most popular wrestlers ever. Him one or two, maybe not in that order, whatever. It's those two that you don't have to really have ever watched wrestling to really recognize. He's in the Hollywood A-lister, pretty much. I don't know, maybe, I guess he's still an A-lister. Did very well in the WWF, WWE, and when they started to feature The Rock, things really started to take off for them. Now they were already winning because of Stone Cold and partially The Rock too, but things really got good and really got entertaining when The Rock came along. Go ahead.
Is responsible for putting the island of Samoa and Samoan athletes on the map.
From the Isle of Samoa, I give Peter my beer.
My grandfather wrestled for Vince McMahon Sr., and then in the 80s, my dad came along, Rocky Soulman Johnson, and along with Tony Atlas became the first black tag team champions.
Rock, everything he do is just like his father. Walk like his father, wrestle like his father. You didn't know nobody. You think that Rocky Johnson.
I remember meeting Vince McMahon Jr. when I was 11 years old. Looked down at me, good to meet you. Gave me a great firm handshake, looked me in the eye. I'll never forget it.
Here we go. The newcomer who's really made a name for himself as a late, talking about Rocky Maivia.
When he came in, we really promoted him as this third generation guy that you're going to love.
This guy is going to be the first third generation superstar ever.
We shoved him down their throats.
When you hear the chant of, he sucks.
They hated him.
A lot of our audience, I think, thought that this person was just like handed this opportunity. And no matter how hard Dwayne worked in the ring, initially people started booing him.
I'm sick of hearing about the Rocky Maivia's old man. Who cares?
The fans hated The Rock because WWE told us to love The Rock. And it took The Rock turning heel. And
Yeah, sometimes the fans decide whether you're going to be a heel or not. And it's smart of the wrestler and the promoter to realize how the fan is reacting to the guy and pretty much go that way accordingly, I guess. Because The Rock was a great heel, very entertaining. Used to love The Rock.
for the fans to start to love him.
Nation of Domination was a faction that was based on pride in being of color and not being held down by the man.
The newest member of the Nation of Domination, Rocky Maivia.
Talked to Vince, and I said, I would just love the opportunity to speak on why I'm joining the nation. And he said, you got it.
I got 3 words. Die, Rocky, die. That's the gratitude I get from you pieces of crap.
And I said, it's not a black thing, it's not a white thing. It's a respect thing, it's about me kicking your ass thing.
This is about the color of my skin. This is about respect.
You know, sometimes in our lives we find these moments where there's a shift and a click, and you go, man, there is some real power behind that.
Well, Rocky Maivia is a lot of things, but sucks isn't one of them.
And boom, just like that, within a month, I became the hottest heel in the company.
If you smell what the Rock is cooking.
I remember having a conversation with Vince and him saying, I'm going to make you WWE champion. I said, you know, this is a really big...
They imitated the Montreal Screwjob, with Rock's first WWF Championship win with Shane McMahon as the referee over Mankind. One of Mick Foley's creation, Mankind, Dude Love, Cactus Jack, all very three entertaining champion characters, and I guess Mankind was actually the champion that The Rock beat. Very, very entertaining match.
First WWE champion of color. He said, I know. And he goes, but I don't see that. Vince, and I know this for sure, he was always about, I don't care what color you are. You could be black and green, purple. You could be a unicorn for all I give a shit. As long as you are drawing money, you will be champion. See? Not racism. It's business. He don't see black. He don't see white. He see only green. For people who knew WWE at that time, the Attitude Era, it was a unique and special time because it truly was whatever you can imagine, we can do. And we did.
The Attitude Era, man, it was a movement. Everywhere you went, you saw Austin 316. You saw DX.
Suck it, man. Right.
You saw The Rock. Everybody was in on it.
They were so popular. Their merchandise was everywhere. The influence was all over the culture.
We're going to have stars right here in the house. Gentlemen.
They showed The Rock hosting Saturday Night Live and Brett Favre doing the suck it sign. You know, if you remember that.
The Rock to speak at the Republican National Convention.
Welcome the one, the only, Triple H.
For a lot of us in the Attitude Era, we went from being like, yeah, I'm a dude on TV that people recognize occasionally to, you can't go anywhere. It was getting out of control.
They're making way more money now than they did then. But, I mean, as far as actual real popularity, that was the peak.
It's the entertainment phenomenon of the Nine House, billion-dollar industry worldwide, a TV ratings smash, a sport of sorts that draws more teenage male viewers than Monday Night Football or World Series baseball.
People remember that period.
Right now, I am watching more Monday Night Wrestling than Monday Night Football. And I was always a huge football fan. But now I'm watching wrestling because the Attitude Era was very good, full of stars. And like they said, they became superstars at this point.
Very fond memory, because wrestling really was huge mainstream at that time. From a pure marketability standpoint, the product they were putting on was awesome. It connected. From a moral standpoint, morals are morals, but it rubbed some people the wrong way.
One true thing about professional wrestling, millions of fans are pouring in. But this business has serious...
Yeah, Dave Meltzer was right because it was way more vulgar and way more sexually explicit. The Godfather was coming to the ring with ladies that he would call hoes. They weren't talking about hoes and shit on wrestling back then until this came. And then the women performers were a little bit more sexually explicit. You know, China had her boobs done and she was walking around shaking her titties every damn where. Even Stephanie McMahon, Sable, who was basically a model, and it was just way more sexually graphic back then, and just way more vulgar overall than it ever been. So instead of when I was a kid, it catering to the kids as far as the WWF. Now, like they said earlier, it's catering to adults, and they had a lot of adult content on here.
Promoters would have you believe that it's family entertainment. But if you've never been to a show or never seen one on TV, watch one. You're in for a shock.
As performers, you're just going for whatever the biggest reaction is. And you're seeing these things get bigger reactions than anything else. So you're going down that road of, I'm going to be edgy.
I got 2 words for you. Suck.
It was a lot of fun and there was a lot of freedom. But there's a lot of stuff online that you can watch, where I go like, oh, how did we ever get away with that stuff?
You can take your pick of either one of these holes.
Critics say the World Wrestling Federation blows away the envelope of good taste.
Perhaps no one has been more critical of McMahon than New York Post columnist Phil Mushnick.
They knew that they could get away with everything. Not anything, everything. And they pushed it. They pushed that for all of the world. We're going to go low, and then we're going to go lower, and then we're going to go lower.
This was maybe a standard deviation beyond what we were doing before. But it was still family friendly. No one got killed. There was no rape.
Come on out, you rapist!
No use of knives or guns or anything like that.
Witness a recent simulated castration system.
So it's still family friendly. Maybe for an adult family, not for young kids.
They were doing the double talk. They would say, we're not marketing to kids, when in fact their audience was kids. And so some people would go like, hey, you've got a responsibility to not be such a bad influence on kids. They go, oh, but we're not marketing to kids anymore. That's what we used to do. It's like, all right, whatever. I think it was primarily aimed at young.
Well, yeah, because they still sold toys. But if you pay attention to your kids and you see them watching this type of shit and you allow them to watch, I think the responsibility is really on the parent. You have to pay attention to your kids on social media. You have to pay attention to what they're watching on TV. That's kind of on you. If you're a wrestling fan and been a wrestling fan and you start to watch what's going on here, you understood just by watching it that your kid probably shouldn't be watching this. So I don't see why people feel Mushnick actually put it on them. Feel I can understand why you hate Vince now. But with this,
These aren't being bought by and enjoyed by adults. These are for 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds.
Frankly, the Attitude Era, the kids, embraced it. Suck it. Suck it. They were seeing something maybe they weren't supposed to see. So the Attitude Era, in many ways, probably attracted kids. Would I have let my kids watch it? Yeah, I probably would have.
It's a monster, is really what it is. It's a nationwide monster. It's got to be stopped.
The principal is entitled to his opinion. I'm entitled to mine. We wholeheartedly would want parents and everyone to be able to exercise their freedom of choice. Damn it, it is America. Go live in your world. Don't like us. Click us off. Don't watch us.
Look, I was the one, certainly.
As I get a little bigger in YouTube, I'm going to start to understand, I think, why Vince would tell them to click it off. Because I say a lot of things too. And I could imagine getting haters and people flagging me or whatever. And I would want them to just click me off. Unsubscribe. Watch something else. Don't watch me no more. That is an option. Okay, because it'll be some things that I might say that maybe a kid shouldn't hear. So I kind of get what Vince is saying here.
And that, don't tell us to raise your children. You need to raise them yourself. And if they're influenced by television, that's your fault. Now, having a daughter, there are times we probably could have been less objectionable towards our women. It is time to stop your grinning and drop your linen.
We continue to consistently go over the line in terms of taste. There were a lot of questionable things. You look pretty damn good on your knees, China. It almost looks like a natural position. It was, exploitive of women like you wouldn't believe, but that's what was selling. And the audience was guys, teenage guys seeing women like that. From a pure marketing standpoint, it was very, very successful.
The Attitude Era women weren't really considered wrestlers. Eye candy. That's kind of what they were at the time. Sable was the pioneer WWE diva, so to speak. She knew exactly what her role was. People know her as sexy Sable, but she was also athletically contributing to the show, which I think is overlooked at times because it wasn't normal, it wasn't acceptable, it wasn't what the women did. At the time, like the late 90s, you had Jerry Springer.
Just when you thought you'd seen it all, the bad get bad.
You had train wreck television that was happening. Howard Stern was huge.
I want to bang Bonnie, Jill, and Brandy.
The Attitude Era definitely was a reflection of what was going on in the real world.
Society at that time was a lot sexier, and we were reflecting that.
This was right. I remember the girls going wild. I remember. Now I'm a very young adult at this point, but I still remember the sexier videos. I think they were, like he said, trending with the world. And they were. The women at this time were a lot more sexual because they were just more attractive. Just the Sable, like I said in my last video, Wendy Richter was one of the more attractive in that era. Most of these girls look better than Wendy Richter as far as physically. Wendy Richter, I think, was okay. These girls were really good looking. And most of them today even look better. Like, it's like you almost have to be an attractive woman to be a professional wrestler now, because I don't really see ugly ones. They all fine in their own way. Now Bruce Pritchard is getting ready to talk. Go ahead, Bruce.
Bra and panty matches. I'm not sure that that would be suggested today. that time, that was what was on television.
Vince McMahon is part of his time. The difference is that he's in a distinctive position where he reinforces those tendencies rather than challenging or changing or transforming them into something else.
We more or less followed what was going on in the entertainment business. A lot of times, the highest order hour, the highest rating in that segment were women. Much higher than some of the great matches and things of that nature.
We felt like we needed to be edgy because that's what television was at that time.
And this is live TV. And there ain't a damn thing Vince can do about this.
We always want to serve our audience, so we did, and of course took it maybe a little too far in some cases.
They showed a picture of Sable taking her shirt off with black hands on her breast like this, with her breast out with black hands painted on them like this. And they're right. It's TV was you could watch Cinemax back then and basically watch softcore porn on basically cable channel. I guess that's not really basic cable. You probably had to pay for Cinemax and HBO. But you could basically see softcore porn back then on TV. And the WWE kind of came close at times to that back then. Very sexual.
I would say how crazy it was. You can look back at it now and think, God, you should have never done that, or that was so inappropriate, or it was. And who's worse, the guy that did it or the people that loved it? I don't know.
Welcome to the War Zone, everybody. Jim Ross. I'm joined by J.G. Cornette here at ringside, and the owner of the World Wrestling Federation is on his. Owen Hart, I'm ordering you to appear in this ring right now. Right there. It's covered by, we're going to see reporting for duty or reporting for a fight.
After the problems I had with Bret Hart, I met with Owen. I said, Owen, do you want to stay with us, or do you want to leave, with Bret? He said, well, I'd like to stay.
It's time for me to do what I have to do, and that is remain right here in the World Wrestling Federation.
When I went to WCW and Owen stayed, nothing was the same anymore. So he thought I was mad at him. If anything, I had great sympathy for Owen and felt badly that he was in the predicament that he was in. Owen had nothing to do with either me or Vince, but he was going to pay for it. And they kind of humiliated his character as often as they could for quite a while to get at me.
The hypothesis that we would do something against Owen because Bret left only speaks to Bret's ego. Ready, Bret? Why would we do that? We don't care about it.
But you did it. And you showed it on TV. You're like, really, Bret? But do you continue to embarrass this man? No. Why else would you do it? Besides Bret leaving. Because he was pretty good in the ring. And you really could have used him in a little more serious position, especially after the Montreal school job, which you started to do. And then after that, you just clowned him.
So they ended up doing a storyline with him where they said, you're going to be the Blue Blazer again, and you're going to be this sort of clumsy oaf hero.
May 23rd, 99. Can you talk about that day?
That was Owen.
Let's take in it.
In this documentary, they're gonna go into the day that Owen Hart died, and soon as he mentioned May 23rd, 1999, I was just 20 years old. I just turned 20 years old when this happened. I can't believe he's been gone that long. But when they mentioned that, you could see Bruce start fidgeting and looked really uncomfortable. Because this is one of the saddest things that happened during the Attitude Era. Very tragic.
Now, an interview conducted earlier tonight, and we got big problems out here.
Well, through Blazer, you got a big match tonight going after the interview.
We were live in a pre-taped interview of Owen. We were going to drop Owen down, kind of like rappelling from the top of the ceiling.
Owen was to fly, so to speak, as we've done before, from the rafters of the building.
I'm watching the pre-tape interview, and I hear someone say, "Owen's in the ring." What the hell is he doing?
I was on a flight, and I could feel something overcame me. And I can remember when something bad happened. I can feel it.
Ladies and gentlemen, when you're doing live television, a lot of things can happen, and sometimes they are not good. The Blue Blazer, as we know as Owen Hart, was going to make a very spectacular superhero-like entrance from the rafters, and something went terribly wrong here.
Thank God for the audience that we were in a blackout, so they didn't really see it. Thank God. When the lights came up, they saw Owen in the ring and medical personnel were working on him. We wondered whether or not could Owen be alive. Surely he could be.
Jerry Lawler back joining me here. King, I was just reiterating the fan.
Yeah, by this time, he had obviously passed. And the thing is, Owen didn't really even want to do the stunt. And they pretty much insisted that he did. This was very, very sad. And, you know, I'm really enjoying Bret Hart's commentary during this whole series so far, because to me, he's the most honest person here. By far, he's been the most honest person in this documentary. To me.
It's not part of the show. We're here to entertain and have fun, but this is neither.
No, it doesn't look good at all.
Jerry Lawler came back and says, "Bruce, I think he's dead." Like, no. You know, I was like, how do you even say that? The policeman who was next to me pulled me off to the side, and Vince was there, and he let us know. They pronounced him dead.
I have the unfortunate responsibility to let everyone know that Owen Hart has died. Owen Hart has tragically died from that accident here tonight.
I actually watched this pay-per-view and I remember this. Especially that part. Whew. This is like I said, one of the saddest parts of the Attitude Era. Or the death of Owen Hart. Senseless. It's something that didn't even have to happen.
Decision that basically I had to make was whether or not the show goes on. The live audience didn't really see what happened. Had they seen, there's no question about it, you have to shut the show down.
We didn't announce it to the live house because just didn't think that was the right thing to do.
Those people came to see a show. They didn't come to see somebody die. And me as a businessman, it's like, well, okay, let's continue on. Let's continue the show.
But that's exactly what happened. They came and they saw somebody die. And for them to continue the show, I think was kind of cold. That's really some cold-hearted shit. Why continue? And then, I feel kind of bad for the rest because I'm sure they didn't want to continue. But why put them through this?
I'm praying for you, buddy.
I am too.
Val Venus, you've been chasing these puppies around. Well, pal, I got news for you. Those are my puppies, and they always have been.
They never should have continued the show. One of your buddies just died, like literally just died in this ring, and his blood is right there. And we're going out there wrestling, trying to perform for this audience that doesn't even know it while we're brokenhearted.
What you do, your business, is entertainment. And you allowed the entertainment to continue with the blood of Owen Hart still in the ring. I'm not sure that's not disrespectful to Owen Hart.
So there are a lot of negative comments, actually, as to whether or not this show should have continued.
I actually know firsthand from the wrestlers involved that they wheeled my dead brother right past all the wrestlers, and actually pushed wrestlers out the door and said, go, 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 you're on.
Naturally, Brent's going to feel like, like a brother should. He had every right to say anything negative about our company.
I think if Vince McMahon had dropped Shane McMahon from the ceiling and he splattered on the mat, I don't think he would have scraped him off the mat and set the next match out.
Had it been me, not just my son, had it been me who was splattering the mat, as Brent said, I would want the show to go on. So get me out of there,
That's a lie. I don't think that that's true at all. I think that's an absolute lie, and it shows that some things just aren't that important. A human life is more important than any fucking show, any wrestling event. If somebody died and then you will them past your performers and then you force them to go out and perform, that's unbelievably fucked up. This is fair use. Fair use. I'm doing commentary on this fucked up video.
To this day, I'll let.
Lie.
It really was very hard for me to take at that time because I kept thinking that maybe they murdered him to get back to me.
At 10:01 a.m. this morning, my legal counsel filed a wrongful death lawsuit.
This is that was Owen Hart's wife.
Settled a lawsuit basically with his wife. And then we find out, which we thought, it wasn't our fault. Unfortunately, the apparatus they were using was defective, and the manufacturer knew it was defective. And then we sued the manufacturer.
They investigated Vince and WWF for a long time. A policeman from Kansas City's police department called me, and he goes, I promised you I'd call you, and I'm calling to tell you that there's nothing criminal here, that this was just a horrible accident. And for me, when I heard that, it was like, okay, it's an accident. I think in my heart of hearts, forgave Vince. I had plenty of reasons to have issues with Vince, but they were on a professional level and not a personal level.
Do you think there will be any changes in wrestling because of this? I certainly hope so. We're not so dead against the wrestling business, but we are disappointed in this, in the drastic turn that wrestling's taken in the last 2 years. And it's a shame that, the fans have sort of become wild dogs that sort of want more and more and more all the time.
At that point, we're all pushing the envelope.
Now they're showing the barbed wire baseball matches. Fitz busted open and bloody. They showed the Undertaker Mankind match when Undertaker threw him off the top of the cage onto the ringside announcer's table. And then after that, I remember me and my sister watching it, throwing him through the cage and into the ring after he took that bump. And that was actually a rougher bump, really, even though it didn't look like it, getting thrown from the top of the cage into the ring, then being thrown from the top of the cage onto the announcer's table.
Everybody's willing to do whatever it takes. No one's saying I don't want to do that or that's too dangerous. But at some point, enough is enough.
We want to give our fans what they want. We're probably pushing as far as we can right now, but who knows as it relates to the future.
In 2000, Martha Hart settled her lawsuit against the WWE, and in 2003, the WWE settled the lawsuit against the manufacturer. Okay. Well, that was episode 3. Oh, episode 4, excuse me, of the Mr. McMahon documentary. We'll be doing fair use again. We'll be doing episode 5 in a few more days. I'm going to put this up on YouTube right now. Before I say goodbye, I hope you enjoyed this. Like, share, subscribe. We need just 2 more subscribers till we're eligible to go live. So, y'all go ahead and hit that subscribe button. For Nove Smith, Michael Love, and Nick Jackson, my man Nick Jackson, thank you so much for joining the show, and thanks for watching. And we'll see you Sunday for the Mick and Mike Love podcast, where we'll be discussing everything that's going on in the regular world and the professional wrestling world. Who knows what we'll talk about? Who knows what we'll get into on that show? Take care. Love y'all.